The insurance industry is moving from a detect and repair approach to a predict and prevent model thanks to advancements in AI. We are joined by Paul Rickard from Oliver Wyman to explore this shift. Paul, how is generative AI changing the way insurers assess risk?
When it comes to assessing risk, generative AI can be very powerful for augmenting decision making. And that translates itself into two main things. First of all, it allows underwriters or other individuals assessing risks to have access to vast arrays of information, unstructured data in particular, to augment what they would otherwise just rely on their own expertise and experience for. So, for example, inside insurance companies, what that means is underwriters can use generative AI to not only access their own prior accounts, claims previously handled, but can access years, if not decades, of prior experience as well. The other piece is that it provides access to an instant feedback loop for underwriters or other individuals. So rather than having to do some very in-depth and lengthy analysis or hand off to other teams, underwriters or other employees can instantly engage with generative AI tools to get answers to their questions and use their own expertise and additional prompts to dive deeper as necessary, which means that they have instantly access to more information. And from a customer engagement standpoint, it means potentially shorter timeframes as well. Having said all this, we're still in the early days when it comes to risk assessment and enabled by generative AI. In Asia Pacific, we're seeing about a third of insurers having some form of deployed POC when it comes to risk assessment. These tend to be reasonably narrow at this point in time. And so we're anticipating these POCs and use cases to become broader and more advanced over the next 2 to 3 years. So to summarize, generative AI can be very powerful to augment decision-making when it comes to risk assessment, but the bulk of the impact is yet to be seen.
But despite being in its early stages, just as you've mentioned earlier, does this mean that generative AI can affect customer personalization in insurance?
Yeah, that's also a very good use case for generative AI. It can help with what I would call hyper-personalization, which goes from enabling better customer insights, better customer segmentation, and more targeted customer engagement at scale and more rapidly. So, for example, that means that insurance agents, instead of having access to 5 or 6 personas that they would use to better understand their customer needs or preferences and tailor the way they engage with their customers, can now, using generative AI, access dozens, if not hundreds, of potential personas that are based on demographic and psychographic information garnered from a range of unstructured sources. There's two important considerations for this. These solutions are still very much and will continue to be, for the time being, employee-facing rather than customer-facing inside insurance companies. The reason being that these solutions still very much require a human in the loop to understand what makes sense, what doesn't, to apply their own expertise and determine what makes sense to engage with a customer on. So that's an important point. And the other important point is that, as a corollary of the prior point, insurers need to set up the right governance frameworks and the right guardrails so that employees understand how they can use these tools and what are the do's and don'ts around these. So to summarize, generative AI, as you noted, is very powerful for hyper-personalization, provided that these solutions are, for the time being, employee-facing and with the right guardrails around them.
You mentioned that humans are still needed in the equation. Does this count as a challenge? What are the main challenges of integrating generative AI into insurance operations?
Yeah, so there's a range of challenges when it comes to implementing and operationalizing generative AI. And I see a few principles that are critical to addressing these challenges. The first one is to be business-led, not technology-led. One challenge is, over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a lot of insurers, the majority of them, experimenting with generative AI to understand the technology, its limitations, the realm of possibles. And one challenge is for insurers to stay in that experimentation stage rather than moving towards starting from the business needs or the customer need and transforming towards it. Using generative AI as one of the tools, not the only tool, but in concert with AI and analytics techniques, technology, operational and behavioral changes to reach that business ambition or to address that customer need. The second principle is around engaging the front line early and often. One challenge that I oftentimes see is that the individuals I referenced earlier, whether they're underwriter or insurance agents, are not involved early on in the solutions, which can cause issues around adoption, for example. And so engaging these folks early and often can help with building conviction and also more rapidly iterating towards the business or the customer needs to be addressed. Third is use the data you have and build from there. Another challenge that we're continuously seeing in the insurance industry is that there are oftentimes data quality issues. Data quality issues will probably continue to be an issue for the time being. And so starting with the data you have now and progressively involving more data sources or higher quality data will be important to start now and build iteratively. And then finally, build the right governance and guardrails, as I referenced earlier. Another challenge could be that employees are not adequately trained and operating under the right framework to use the generative AI tools adequately. So building the right guardrails from the very beginning, especially since we're talking mostly about employee-facing solutions primarily, is absolutely critical. So to recap, I see four big principles to address these challenges around generative AI. Be business-led, not technology-led. Engage the frontline early and often. Use the data you have and build from there, and build the right governance frameworks and guardrails around it.
Thank you so much for your insights, Paul.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Once again, that was Paul Rickard, partner and Asia Pacific head of insurance and asset management at Oliver Wyman. He will be speaking at the Insurance Asia Summit on September 3. So for more news and a chance to network with industry leaders at the Insurance Asia Summit, don't forget to sign up at insuranceasia.com.